Awesome. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to introduce Dwayne McDaniel. Dwayne has been working as a developer associate since 2016 and has been involved in tech communities since 2005. He loves sharing his knowledge, and he has done so by giving talks over 100 events worldwide. Let's welcome Dwayne.
Hey everybody. Yeah, so I'm passing around stickers. Please make sure people get them, 'cause otherwise I gotta take them home. I'll take the rest back with me. But I am very happy to be here at CornCon. This is my 27th conference this year, and I've spoken to OWASP, Global AppSec. I ran AppSec Village at DEF CON. This has been an eventful year for me, and I'm very, very, very happy to be here at CornCon. So what this talk is definitely not, I'm not talking jailbreaks, I'm not talking technical flaws. Well, maybe I am, but I'm not talking RAG engineering or prompt injection properly. I'm not talking about those elements of security with this stuff. So if you were coming into this talk about AI thinking, hey, we're gonna get about RAG engineering, now's your chance to go somewhere else. This is a talk about human beings. This is one of my favorite pictures on the internet because it's people playing Monopoly, which is one of my favorite games of all time, because it's a wonderful set of rules, but it's just enough luck and just enough skill. And that's kind of how security feels to me. It's just enough luck and it's just enough skill. But it's also people. That's the important thing here. It's people doing what they love. And that's what we got to always remember. Like, security is humans. That's what we're guarding. Like, there's technical flaws, there's a lot of limitations to it, but at the end of the day, why are we doing security? So kids can get to their medical appointments on time because their hospital didn't get ransomwared. That's the actual cost. That's why I'm in this game, that's why I'm in this fight. I could care less about 0 day. I care about that kid making their appointment. And I think a lot of the times, if we just focus on the tech side, it feels like we're staring into a garbage fire, an endless, endless garbage fire. I'm not here to disparage AI at all. I, for one, welcome our overlords. But as we'll see, I use AI a lot, but I don't think it's flawless, and I think there's some inherent danger when we start over-relying on it. By the way, I'm Dwayne. I live in Chicago. I got that introduction earlier. Go check out the Security Repo podcast. I'm very, very proud of this work I do, bringing higher awareness about a lot of technical and security issues we're all facing. It's available on YouTube. Follow that link. It'll take you to our link tree. And if you want to talk about karaoke, I love karaoke. And I also love rock and roll. So if anybody want to see some rock and roll in Davenport tonight, I am down for it. All right, I work for GitGuardian. Very quickly about us, we are a secrets detection remediation platform at scale. Security tooling for developers. We're leaning into non-human identity and that observability space a little bit further. Love to talk to you about that, actually. GitHub public monitoring is our claim to fame. We also make honey tokens, but I'm not going to talk about that today. So I asked ChatGPT, like, why shouldn't I give this talk? I submitted this talk to the Vancouver AI conference. This is the first place I ever submitted this. And then I submitted it here. And I got into that one, then I got into this one. And then I said, is this even a good idea? Should I retract this and ask AI, like, should I stop? I was like, nah, what I'm talking about isn't on this list. Maybe it is, the oversaturation. In fact, I use AI a lot, like I said. In fact, I even tried to name the talk with this, and I didn't like any of the names it gave me, so I used the one that you saw on the schedule. But this is what I use it for. I say, hey, I would love another opinion. I would love somebody to kick out an idea. Summarize this 90-page PDF into 10 bullet points, and I love doing that with it. I'm a huge nerd. I love Dune, the first 6 books from the Herbert series. No one's read this one, I know. It's like the least popular of all because it's the weirdest 3,500 years in the future from the events of the first Dune book. But got Emperor Leto II and the trial of Siona out in the desert. So what do such machines really do? They increase the number of things we can do without thinking. Things we do without thinking. There's the real danger. The next sentence is, and you forgot, like such as you have forgotten to attach your face mask, so her still suit, she's gonna die, basically, is because she lost enough moisture in the middle of the desert. But that's the real danger, like doing things without thinking. That's why the Butlerian Jihad happened, but that's a whole other matter we can talk about if you're a nerd as well. But this is the core of my talk. If we do things without thinking, there is so many pitfalls. There's so many things that we can just forget. Because development, IT, security, everything we do with computers requires humans thinking about a complex idea. The internet is a very complex idea. Security is a very complex idea. And then communicating that with other people. I have no special skills. I will say this up front. I'm a theoretician first and foremost. I am a platform person first and foremost. Security is something I backed into and I love it. But I feel my calling in the security industry is to raise awareness and to give talks like this. And communicate, because it's really important that we learn how to communicate better. When we put AI into the mix, all of a sudden we have the AI-assisted development complex. Humans slowly get out of the loop, and this causes some major issues, in my opinion. I'm not saying, again, that AI is bad. I love AI. It does great things. I never want to build a 16-case statement, switch statement by hand ever again. I never want to look up the exact settings for a Flask server that will serve an image on my local host. I don't want to do those things. The one I have the problem with on this list of all these things is number 6. It enables learning. And I don't doubt that it can. If you listen to Jason Haddock's and his like Purple Team AI talk that he's been given lately, you can find a couple recordings of that online from HackSpaceCon, and he just gave it at OWASP. It can. He's been asking this bot questions for a year now and just learning from it and with it. It's the Arcanum security bot. It's hard to find because they took it out of the store because they considered it a pen testing tool and therefore offensively dangerous. But it still exists. But you can learn with AI. But we're not learning with AI. So here's the 3 things that I think are the biggest walk away if you want to have a conversation about these 3, and then I'll wrap it up at the end with the larger issue. But the first one is that the AI told me to do it that way. Because developers don't pick and choose what they're going to do. They do off of a Jira board maybe. They do off of what their sprint's going to do. But they move from above them saying, do this. Someone above says, we're moving to Jenkins. They're like, okay. And what did we do in the days before AI? We Googled it. And where did Google take us? You get an extra raffle ticket. If I ask a question and you answer it, you didn't know that going up, but come up to me afterward. I have 4 extra raffle tickets to give away. So one of those is yours. We Googled it, and where does it get a Stack Overflow? That's exactly correct. This is just a random one. I think they meant Bash script, but that's the beauty of Stack Overflow, isn't it? You can still find what you're looking for. And they asked the question, okay, that seems to be about what I'm about to try to do. Cool, all right. It was modified a year ago, so it's like fairly current, I guess. And then you get to this, and it's like, okay, I'm reading them, like, it's a curl. Okay, I know how to use curl. Okay. And then there's this beautiful, beautiful section at the bottom called the comments. And it's a flame war, and it's wonderful. Every time, it's no exceptions unless there's nobody participating. And it's 2 security experts or 2 experts in whatever they think they're expert in arguing back and forth. And ultimately citing sources. The easiest way to prove you're right is to cite a source and say, but the original documentation from the Jenkins community says this. So eventually you end up here. And it's an indirect path to get to what you were actually looking for. And along the way, there's a bunch of mental processes you have to go through to get here. It's roughly 30% of a developer time actually touches a keyboard in a way that's creating or manipulating code. The rest of it is this, thinking. How does this go together? What's the path? What's the best practice? Because if I can like go through and read this flame war and say, okay, I think they're right, then at least I have that basis to go back to the team and it's like, this is what I think, and here's exactly why I think it. And here's all the documentation, and here's the evidence I do. It's like, oh, I was in that flame war, and I'm on the other side, and I don't think an env file is the right approach. We need to use a vault for storing and grabbing secrets. I see the world of secrets management because that's where I work, but you can have this conversation and this dialogue in an intelligent way and teach other people what you learned, summarizing it. This is on my unfortunate fear and what I've witnessed and what I've talked to a bunch of developers, and what all the evidence is showing is we're doing this. Hey, can you build this for me? Okay, cool. Oh, I'll give you a second to look at that. I have another slide with this on it, but we just copy paste this and it works, and okay, we're good, we're done. I meant to put the slide 2 down later, but anyway, this is like research that came out last month. You can get all these slides. I'll put the slide, the tiny URL up at the end again, but a CIO article pointing to somebody else's research, that's the links go to. But there's no significant gain in the overall output. Number of tasks completed is up to 30% improvement. But a task completed is not the project moving forward. If you meet at the PR and it doesn't move past the PR, it's not going to production. But the more concerning thing on here is we're starting to introduce 41% more bugs to people that depend on AI. Because it's telling us to do things like this. I don't know if anyone noticed that earlier, but anytime I see API equals and a hard-coded thing, I lose my mind. Like, oh, are we still doing that? We've had this problem for 30 years in the friggin' computer science industry, and we have not addressed this in a meaningful way. We will, we are. Spiffy Spire are coming. The world of machine identity is changing, and I love that. But the real problem with the humans in this is that they introduced a bug. It's like, I got this working now, and they have no idea why or how this works. It just worked, except it didn't. Because, oh, they hard-coded a credential, and this is what happened to Uber. This is the only horror story I'm going to tell, but it's one of my favorites. A 19-year-old kid in the UK paid $20 on the dark web for super admin credentials for Uber. True story. You can't see it because it's black up there, but credential access is what it says above there. The colors are way different. Credential access gets in through VPS. They got MFA on. Not to say Uber wasn't using MFA, but it was push MFA, and they kept pushing notifications till either his thumb slipped or his wife got out of bed and was like, I don't care anymore. We don't know. I'm not blaming anyone. We never know the real story of how MFA failed there. But once in, PowerShell scripts, chock full of credentials, pwned everything, taunted HackerOne from within their own interface, flooded their entire Slack instance with memes. They thought it was a joke. The only reason we know this story is the next person he talked to after they all thought he was a joke was the New York Times. And 60 people got fired the next day. I knew 2 of those people. Well, not personally, but I knew who they were. Anyway, that's how we end up in this garbage fire of security. That is it. Because we keep making mistakes like that. And not to say human beings aren't going to make mistakes if we stop using AI. Absolutely not. We're still going to make mistakes, but 41% higher bug rate? A bug is a bug is a bug. I don't care if it's a security bug, a technical bug, a bug is a bug. If the bugs go up, security goes down. That's just true. Oh, and this is kind of a side throwaway comment, because I don't know if this is a real issue yet, but the Copilot pause. Anybody ever heard this term before? Anybody heard this? A developer explained this to me a few weeks ago, and he witnessed it within our own department internally. We use assisted tools internally. Again, they're helpful for scaffolding and documentation and cool things like that. But the pause is you type just enough that you think Copilot is going to take over, and you stop. And there's an entire world of developer right now that is building for the prompt to finish instead of building the thing, and helping the prompt will help them. That's troubling, but I don't know if that's a real problem yet. All right, hallucinations everywhere. Please read this famous quote while I take a sip of coffee. The work I'm about to cite is not for mine. I'm borrowing this from my former colleague, Mackenzie Jackson. I guess he's still a colleague in the industry, but he used to work with me. This is mine, though. If you've never read this, it's a very short paper, Simulacra and Simulation. It's really important from a philosophical perspective of how reality is represented and where we are in that reality versus the representation itself takes over. The 4th stage is the simulacrum has no relationship with reality whatsoever. Yeah, that's pretty much what this describes. It predicts this in the 70s. So we asked ChatGPT, all right, I need a node package that does this, OrientDB. Okay, cool. So far, so good. OrientJS is a real thing, used by millions, really cool, easy to investigate. We use this thing, OrientJS wrapper. It's got some advantages. Okay, let me go try that. There's no such thing. This is the hallucination problem. It's not just imagining new facts, it's imagining package names. And why does this scare me? This is data from March, his research in March. And he thinks that this is going to get better, but not because the models are getting better, but because hallucination squatting is the new typo squatting. Typo squatting is the wonderful world of, I'm going to switch 2 letters in this long, stupid, weird name of a package, and then go register that. And I'm going to copy the code and put it into my repo, and then put some malicious code in, so it will do the thing you want it to do, but then it does some extra bonus stuff that benefits me, the attacker. Hallucination squatting is going and forcing the prompt to hallucinate, and then go registering those packages. How much of the package infrastructure is hallucination squat right now? We don't know. This is the best part. The research is still being done. This is a new problem as of like last year, when ChatGPT blew up and when Copilot blew up. this is still ongoing. We know that it's up to 10% of all packages are maliciously like typo squatted, but you're not going to put in a linter that's spelled N-L-E-I-T. Like, yeah, okay, that looks weird, but what's the difference between Duck Jenkins and Django Jenkins, or DevPy Jenkins, or Django Jenkins? That's not for. Wait a minute. It's a world of hurt. AI is not helping us because it's helping our adversaries. And that's a worry, because it's making the job of the developer more complicated. Something we're really not talking about. Like, we're talking about defending the model, we're talking about prompt injection, we're talking about RAG engineering, we're talking about jailbreaks. But are we talking about that? I haven't heard a lot of people talk about that. And again, the whole point of this talk is to get us talking about it. I don't have a lot of answers here. And then where does your code go? Now, I am going to take them at their word that Microsoft does not, in fact, train off your prompts. I'm going to take them at their word on that. I believe them. Basically because prompts don't go into the training model. Training is a different thing than gathering of data, but it can go into the training data. It's a bigger question. But this is real. GitHub just grabs code from any old where it can. It don't care about license. It don't care about legality. It just grabs it and trains. Why that's a problem? Oh, just a quick shout out. Nora doesn't exist on X anymore, and I don't think you should either. I don't think any of us should anymore, but that's a side note. I'll get off my soapbox. This is a problem with the training on data because this is just January through June of this year, and these are just the largest of the leaks. How many of these contained the entire source code? Mercedes did. There's a few others on here that did. I can't remember. Well, I mean, WordPress is open source anyway. But Ticketmaster did. But all of them contain some source code. Where does all our source code eventually end up? Even though what you call it, it all ends up on GitHub eventually. That's just the truth. Maybe not 100%, but if you think GitHub's only training on GitHub data, that's naive. They're looking anywhere they can get that code because the model needs to be trained, and the model needs to be trained now, and we're out of data. We're literally out of data. We're making up data to train it on. That's a scary other concept for me. And why does this matter? Because this happens. Remember this one? This is a fun one. Because it's Windows 11 key, who cares? But if the attacker's trying to get into a very specific instance of Jenkins and they've done their homework and they know exactly what issues you have because you've opened issues publicly for about stuff you're using inside your company, oh, they're using that version as of last week. Cool. Give me a key for that specific version of this thing. And all you gotta do is ask it in just the right way. Prompt engineering is real and adversaries are using it, but again, we're not gonna get into the depths of that. But just know, if you wrote it in your code, hard-coded like the AI told you to, there's a good chance it's out there in the training data somewhere, just likely. More of a speculation. Oh, and even if you didn't put in your code, this happened. Has anyone ever passed a password or an API key through Slack ever in your entire life? Yeah, you don't have to raise your hand. We all did it at one point, and I guarantee someone on your team still does it. This is from May. They're changing policy still. They guarantee it won't happen again. They're sorry. But everything you've ever put in Slack that's SaaS, that's not self-hosted version of it, yeah, that's in the model. Congratulations. So those are point issues. Those are things. I'm going a lot faster than I thought I would, so we're going to end on time. Way less, a lot of time. And the larger issue is I was trying to hurry. I had more to say on a couple of those slides, but I've been trying to hurry. The larger issue is that AI leads us down a path of point solution thinking, not system thinking. I'm using the word system thinking very specifically because of this guy, Edward Deming. If you don't know who Edward Deming is, he's the reason we're sitting in this room ultimately. He is the reason DevOps exists. He is the reason that modern lean infrastructure exists. He's the reason Toyota and Honda and all of those players became players. He rebuilt Japan after World War II. John Willis, the person who wrote the DevOps Handbook, really awesome dude, wrote this Deming's Journey to Profound Knowledge. Deming himself is a little dry, a little dated. John's love letter, which is really what it is, John's love letter to Deming and his life's work is really worth your time. It made me really, really appreciate how influential and important this guy is. But he talks about system thinking. Like, we can't think of just what we do in our department. We can't think of just what our little piece is. We need to think, what's the larger picture? How does this move through? How does the process flow? If you think of the concept of flow, thanks Edward Deming. Way ahead of his time. And the best example I have of process thinking versus point solution thinking is Git. One of my favorite technologies that's ever existed. This is what blockchain is based on. This is so important that we have this. And Linus, in April of 2005, in one email said, here's a system I wrote, some scripts I wrote for managing patches. It helps me. I don't think it's ever going to become a full-blown source control management system. 3 months later, they rename it Git. Git sure gets put in charge, and you're still using it today. 97% of all developers on Earth use Git. But they don't use it in the same way. I think most people fall into that first category. I think probably 90% of people fall in that first category. There's an XKCD I was going to use, but I think we've all probably seen it. It's like, here's the 3 commands you need, and if you get into trouble, just blow out the whole repo and reclone it. How many people have done that? Oh, that's how I used to use it. And then I became person 2. I read the Git book, and it changed my world. Because I understood, oh, graph theory. Oh, wow, it's all just lists. Once I understood that you could rewrite your entire history down to the blob, like individual line in a blob level, I understood like how all those people on GitHub make that cool art with their commit histories. They're not timing their commits. They are rewriting their commit history because it's just list files, because Linus was building Linux, and what did he have access to? Text files. So everything's a text file. You can easily edit. It's brilliant. But once you understand that, like, rebasing is not scary anymore. Rebasing is just you're moving this to over there. That's all it is. But that's really conceptually hard to explain if you're just saying, okay, you've never done a rebase before, just do this. That's a point solution versus step back and look at it. And then there's the world of GUI users. I used to work for one of those companies, Git Kraken. I highly recommend them. If you need to get GUI or you just need to speed up your team using Git, check them out. That's just a free plug for them. They're not free, but there's awesome free ones as well. But unfortunately, and I know people in that world, it makes it auto-magical, so Git becomes even more mystical. And like if you use it on the command line, then you're a wizard, even though you only know 8 commands, versus you read the book. Because no one from upstairs, no one in management, no one on the board ever stops and says, hey, developers, go learn Git and first principles. What do they say? Anybody gonna guess what they say for a ticket? I'll give you one because that's close enough. Yeah, do project by X date. That is the directive. We got to get this done. We have to do this or we lose market share. I gave a talk last week at an OWASP Global AppSec specifically about that, like how what you see as a risk isn't even close to what upper management and the board sees as a risk. What you see as debt, they don't even have a concept that exists. They see we need to get this done or we lose market share or our competitors get an advantage or there's bigger risk to the business. And that's what I mean by system thinking. If you can map this statement back to what you're doing and understand the bigger picture of why it's getting done, you're going to have a better conversation. You're going to have better results. You're also going to have a lot less of this, where you just ask a point solution, because you had that larger concept of, wait a minute, that's definitely wrong, because we never hard code tokens, because we have this vault system, and from a security aspect, I understand the way our security flow is supposed to work. I've mentioned a lot of problems here, and I know I've said good things about AI along the way, but I kind of feel at this point in the talk, I have beat up on it a lot. And I've also left you know, like, what do we do about this yet? And I love this painting, Evelyn de Morgan, Hope in a Prison of Despair. Because we can easily lose track, because it is a scary world. Security is the scariest thing you can do, I think. Other than maybe look at spiders for a really long time. That's really scary. But security in general, like, is terrifying. It's isolating. It's a bunch of reading 90 to 180 page PDFs. It's boring. But you end up hunched over, like, scared, and we don't have someone like shining a light and saying, this is how we get forward. Except we do. We're surrounded by them. Everyone you know is carrying a light. They wouldn't be here at CornCon without it. And that light, the perfect inflection point, and this is that research I showed earlier with like the 41% increase in bugs showed. Where are they finding the bugs? at the PR. Where do we have to mandatorily get together in order to make development happen in a modern pipeline workflow? At the PR. It's the most important thing Git gave us, in my opinion, is the ability to have this dedicated conversation in a sane, trackable, scalable way. Has anybody ever gone and looked at the commit history on Git itself? I highly recommend it. I highly recommend it. It is very educational because it literally is how the process moved from, like the early days, is moving from patches over email chains to this conversation they start having in the larger picture. Now, Git still is managed on its own, and this is a clone of what they do. But it's still there. The conversation's still happening there. It's the point of entry. Anybody can go make a pull request. You can clone it and make a pull request. Are they going to accept it? Probably not. But they are always looking for contributors if you want to actually get involved in the real process. That's a side note. A bigger note is if I really, 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 really wanted someone in the Git process, Git project to look at something, I have a path. Every developer has a path to talk to the other people that are holding lights. And you don't have to light up the whole room. You don't have to light up your little corner of it. Everyone carries with them so much information that's personal to them, that's specific to their situation. If you think of the world of computer science as a giant globe, at any given moment, you can only see one side of that globe. And really, we're standing so close to that globe, especially in security, our noses are almost touching it. So we can see, like, just to pick Uruguay, just for a random country, like, that's our worldview. But then someone taps you on the shoulder, like, wait a minute, Chile's over here. And then someone taps you on the shoulder, like, no, Brazil's up here. And then someone's like, that's just South America, y'all. And finally you realize, hey, there's this bigger picture. The old story of the blind men and the elephant comes to mind. But I think you all know that story. If not, look it up. That's a really famous one. We're all describing it in our own terms. But once we can start communicating a little bit clearer as humans and having these conversations, and again, I think the inflection point where we should have these conversations is here. A distinguished engineer at Comcast a few years ago gave a talk at GitCon, which I had organized at that point, so I got a whole bunch of conversations with her. She's great. Names escaping me off the top of my head because I didn't think I was going to talk about this. But they realized that they had been abusing the PR process to get things out the door faster. They weren't using it as an inflection point. And once they did, once they actually used it as a teaching tool, a time to get together and have this conversation, suddenly there are three completely separate fighting teams on the back end of the set-top boxes control systems. Like there's the built-in control the Apple and the iPhone controls. The iPhone and the Android controls. Like they stopped fighting and realized, like, wait a minute, we're one team. We're learning from each other. We're getting the right people involved. We're having the right conversations. And I'm not saying Comcast is a good company, but that showed me the power of the PR. Because developer requires humans thinking about complex ideas and communicating those with other humans. And we have the tools. We just have the political will. We have to have the ability to push back in the sprint, and it's like, we can't jam this through because, wow, no one learns anything. And if we're gonna make the person who read the Git book help the person who thinks it's automagical actually get better at their job, we gotta give them the room and breathe. Now you sitting in this room at CornCon, I think have limited capacity to go tell management this in real reality. But hopefully you know your developers and you can start having this conversation. It's like, hey, so what's our PR process look like? What's like, how long is that? How many people are reviewed? Is there any way we could get involved in that? They're gonna say no to that one. But they're gonna think you're gonna slow them down. But maybe we need to slow down a little bit. We can get tasks done faster, as the research is showing. But are we getting projects done faster? No. Are we getting worse results? We're trying to go faster with these AI tools assisting? Research is pointing to yeah. Again, I like AI a lot. I hate writing documentation. One of my favorite use cases I ever came into was I'll write a really crappy script for something. It's like, I don't want to document this thing. Throw it at AI. They're going to put it on GitHub Public anyway. Hey, can you document this for me? Bam, I have a document. It's 80% correct. Way faster than me writing it 80% correct. But I don't think it enables learning the way we're currently embracing it. We got to get back to remembering that humans are security, and security is for humans. Not the machines. The machines don't care if someone breaks in. The machine doesn't care if its PII gets stolen. If you learn the MAC address of this, I don't really care, unless you use that to try to hurt me as another human being. This computer doesn't care about this MAC address, only if it's trying to Wi-Fi connect with it. But that's a whole other system, whole other matter. So the challenge I have for all of y'all is go back to your teams and like, how do we better engage as human beings? Not just thinking about the technical flaws, not just thinking about the exploits, not just thinking about our vulnerabilities, but how can we raise all ships and really have the conversations? And I think the inflection point is the PR. That's all I really had to say. But I'm Dwayne. I live in Chicago. I've been a developer advocate since about 2016, 2015, 2014 when I started doing the job. 2016 is when they gave me the title. Hit me up on LinkedIn. That's really my most favorite social platform these days because it just works. I know it's Microsoft, but whatever. And let's go see them rock and roll. But that's the slides if you want them. tinyurl.com/D Dwayne-CornCon. And with that, I will hand out these tickets and open up for any questions you got. Thank you. You get two then. You get his. Anybody? I know there's not a lot of technical, like, could you drive into that thing again, but is there any like slides or where did that data come from? Yep.
This is a side note. Bad Religion's in town playing tomorrow night.
Oh, tomorrow night.
Yeah.
I'm in town tomorrow night. Well, the party's tomorrow night too.
It's 8 p.m. I think.
Where?
8 p.m. down the road.
Okay. Sweet. Oh, I love Bad Religion. That's a good band. Hopefully that makes the recording. Officially, I can say on the record, I love Bad Religion. Last time I saw them with Alkaline Trio. It's a really good show. Any other thoughts?
You mentioned. I forget what you mentioned. Like the AI hallucinations, and kind of reminded me about Google whacking. If anyone in the room remembers Google whacking and how you could take only two words to Google and fool the Google engine to giving you one result, which is not what not AI, but the engine was supposed to do, is give you plural results, and it would give you one. So is there any relation to AI hallucinations or whatever they want to call that nowadays and Google whacking, where it gives you kind of what you want, but really not what you're actually chasing?
That's a new term for me, to be honest with you, so I don't know how to compare and contrast it. I've not really heard of that, and I'm not sure how would an adversary use that?
Google whacking was popular in 96 to maybe 2000.
Okay.
Thank you, my phone, for recognizing.
That was my college days, so.
And it was definitely a method to disrupt the early Google machine. So it was more of a question that.
Yeah, I simply don't have an answer. I'm not familiar enough with it.
If you poison the training corpus that's used to feed the model enough with bad data, you can basically make it associate improperly. So
poison the well.
The classic Google whack was you do a link with the link text litigious bastards, and it goes to SEO.
I gotcha. Okay. I think. Sounds like the whole conversation needs to be had about this. Man, the good old days of the internet. All right, well, that should give you enough time to go to another session. Oh, yeah, one question over here. Got one more. One last one. I'll take this one, and then we'll get your next session. Oh, I was working for this company called GitCrack, and I started giving talks about the Git hook system and how to implement security tools and automate security tools through the Git hook system, like pre-commit. I still believe in this. And I started talking and citing the company I currently work for, Stated Secret Sprawl Report. At that point, they had found over 2 million secrets on GitHub added in the year 2020. This year's report, we found 12.7 million added in the year 2023. The problem is getting almost doubling every year at this point. It's not quite exponential yet, but it's getting bad. And that's literally the thing I'm trying to solve in the world, is like, let's find our secrets. That's why I have great hope for a book you should all read is Solving the Bottom Turtle. It's the Spiffy Spire people put it out, SPIFFE. Security production security production identity framework for everyone. I don't know why I struggle so much at saying it because I've said spiffy so much. It's a way to rethink how we identify processes and just namespace them and get out of the hell of permission and scoping and managing hard-coded long-lived credentials. It's a future. Some people are actually doing it, but secrets observability and the whole NHI space that's happening is pointing to that future. But it's also like, we can't get there from here right now. Anyway, that's the answer to the question. I backed into it because I was just researching all of this stuff anyway. I was like, we'll give you a job in security. I said, okay. And there I am. All right, thank you very much, everybody.